Night after night, you slip away, fading without even noticing. Your eyes close, shadows gather, and your body falls into stillness you can't resist. The world you belong to dissolves. Your sense of self scatters, and time drifts beyond your reach. You stop reacting, your pulse weakens, your mind lets go of everything familiar. If someone looked at you then, they might believe you'd already left for good. But you haven't. You're drifting elsewhere, because while your body lies motionless, something inside you quietly departs. It leaves the waking world behind, embarking on a lonely passage. One that ancient civilizations once traced, but that modern science brushes aside. The Tibetans sensed this mystery. The Egyptians drew its boundary lines. The Gnostics whispered their warnings. But all of that wisdom has nearly faded away. And here's what remains. Heavy and unspoken sleep isn't a sanctuary. It's a fragile rehearsal for the inevitable goodbye. Every dream you have, every surreal fragment, may be a message left neglected. And deep down, you know, the story you've learned of sleep is only a fragment of the truth. Clean, cold science tells of memory storage and muscle repair, describing sleep as just a pit stop for the body and brain. But the old beliefs ran deeper. For them, sleep was never merely rest. It was a solemn ritual, a quiet dress rehearsal for loss you cannot outrun. It isn't just about leaving this world behind. It's stepping quietly into another, a place just as real, though it hides in the creases of reality, nearly invisible while you're awake. The Tibetans called this the bardo, a gray in-between, drifting somewhere amid life and death, between what's solid and what's just a whisper, where everything known slips and blurs. Every night, inevitably, you find yourself there. You don't dream because your mind wants distraction. You dream because your consciousness is wandering, untethered, shifting. The old teachers, the ones who left their warnings on ancient parchment and spoke them in the silence between generations, understood the world you travel while you sleep isn't just metaphor, it's a haunted territory, a realm you'll eventually cross for good. This is why, they warned, you train for dying in your sleep. Because if you wait until the last moment to face that journey, the chance is lost. They weren't alone in this thought. The Egyptian Book of the Dead described night as a passage through the Duat, the underworld, where your soul lingers briefly in the darkness on the other side. Each night, illusions rise, guardians wait, trials return. In the gloom, sleep becomes a rehearsal, a quiet descent swallowed by darkness, with only the cold hope of rebirth come morning. Even the Gnostics, who saw the body as a trap, felt the soul break free at night, returning home for a handful of hours. A soft-handed escape that felt almost holy. For them, sleep was a brief victory, a gentle revolt, swallowed back by flesh when the sun rose again. Years after the ancients speculated about life beyond the body, the modern seeker Robert Monroe explored vast, intangible worlds through out-of-body journeys dreamed in sleep. What he discovered echoed ancient whispers. Consciousness is restless, never content to stay put. It drifts, wanders, slips into territories that, in waking life, we struggle to recall, though some part of us aches with a faint remembering that never quite disappears. Still, every morning, the images and knowledge are gone, slipping through our fingers before we're even fully awake. This isn't mere chance. We've been taught to doubt it, to turn away, to tell ourselves that dreams don't matter, and that all this movement in the night is just empty noise. If we truly grasp what went on while we slept, if we could remember, maybe we'd challenge everything we're told about who and what we are, about the limits set for us. Some knowledge must stay hidden, at least in public. The most sensitive truths are only explained deeper inside Insights Academy. Subscribing gets you a free issue, and, for now, access to the Calendar. The truth is, these secrets aren't locked away for being perilous, but for being freeing. You are not just a body muddling through dreams. You are a consciousness, briefly awake before you drift far beyond the script. In sleep, you're not shutting down, you're escaping. In those hours, you pass into realms that stretch wider than anything you know, that remember you before you even had a name, that refuse to be caged by someone else's story. But with every sunrise, the world insists you forget. That realization is horrifying to those who profit from your compliance. Because if you ever truly remembered what happens when you slip beneath the surface of sleep, you'd see how pitifully small this waking world really is, and how much hungers for you beyond the fragile veil of dreams. Each time you surrender to sleep, you're not indulging in harmless rest. You're rehearsing your own demise, not as a metaphor, but in cold, literal fact. That's the grim wisdom buried at the core of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Sleep and death are twin shadows cast by the same dust. Every nightfall is a dry run for your end. Every morning, a brief resurrection from darkness. But as your body lies motionless, your consciousness drifts through the same passageways you'll be forced to traverse after your final breath. Only now they're quieter and less absolute. You wander the thresholds of the afterlife, blind to the fact that you're treading over your own grave. The Tibetans map 6 bardos, realms of suspended existence, and every night you stumble, unwitting, into the bardo of dreams. There, the layers that hold you together unravel. Time slips. Your identity fractures. Reality loses its grip. And yet something core remains, naked and defenseless, freed from all the illusions you drape over yourself by day. In the dream bardo, what you bury claws its way up. Your fears take on flesh. Your desires become monstrous terrains. It isn't restful at all. It's raw, unfiltered consciousness. A ghostly drama starring your truest self. This is why their dream practices were not gentle explorations but desperate training. The only way to survive the final bardo, the moment when death claws the mask from your face and plunges you into a chaos you never prepared for. Most people thrash in terror, lost. They've walked these corridors 1,000 times without ever seeing where they. For those who've practiced, who've remembered just enough, who've learned to find their way through the labyrinth of sleep, this strange territory is almost second nature. They know what dangers to expect, which illusions to avoid, and how to edge closer to the fragile threads of light. Some dismiss all this as fanciful or poetic, until they're confronted by a haunting pattern. Accounts from every era and culture echo the same stories. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, for instance, paints a picture of the soul forced through trial after trial, lost in a maze of deceptions and locked gates. Each step is heavier than the last, each test gnawing at what's left of hope, character, and clarity. Here too, fear takes shape and blocks the way. Desire, fragile as it is, flickers into fleeting reality. Thought becomes the only structure. Your internal shadows spill out, filling every empty space. Centuries after those first accounts, Robert Monroe, a man grounded in science and logics, unexpectedly tumbled into these borderlands during sleep. His initial bewilderment led to years spent charting this dreamless expanse, shifting gray voids, silent cities built from thoughts, and beings whose presence was unsettlingly concrete. Nothing about it matched the half-remembered haze of dreams. Everything felt unnervingly vivid, purposeful, even if tinged with loneliness. Monroe's findings mirrored the same old stories: a consciousness cut loose, wandering but never asleep, crossing through silent layers of reality that feel endless. There was motion without destination, a dim sort of life outside the flesh, a journey through unseen places, both familiar and impossibly remote. Sometimes it all feels less like a discovery than a quiet exile. This is why true sleep goes far beyond mere rest. Each night, you're ushered into a ritual you barely understand, invited to roam the haunted corridors of your own soul, rehearsing for the one journey you'll never return from. Yet most of us lie buried in our sheets, rising each morning hollow-eyed. With our dreams dissolving like smoke, we blunder through the landscapes of night, rarely daring to look back and ask, where was I drawn? Who inhabited my face? Why did those visions grip me with a terror deeper than daylight ever brings? We've been lulled into believing waking life is the only reality that matters. But what if that's the true delusion? What if the fragments of nightmares, the urgent whispers that startle you from sleep, are the only signals worth heeding? How many warnings have you dismissed as nonsense, all because you were told not to listen? The teachings handed down for centuries, never meant for our comfort. They carried instructions. Sleep is an escape. It's the dark doorway where you might finally see. Ignore it long enough, and one night you'll find yourself staring blankly when the real crossing arrives. Death doesn't finish you. It merely extends the voyage you've rehearsed in secret. Every time you close your eyes, we've been persuaded to think of consciousness as a fragile spark, flickering in the cage of our skulls. But at night perhaps the bars grow thin, and something ancient prowls just beyond the edge of waking. They tell you consciousness flickers when you sleep, snuffs out when you die, that your thoughts, your memories, even your sense of you is nothing more than a trick of chemicals firing in wet gray tissue. Yet if this is all there is, why do so many return from the edge of death with stories darker and sharper than waking reality? A place where the brain is clinically silent, but something else keeps watch. Why do those who wander through lucid dreams or practice, leaving their bodies, always report eerily similar vistas, recurring presences, the same forbidden truths cycling through their journeys? Maybe it's because consciousness doesn't belong to the body at all. The brain is only a mask it wears, a vessel to slip inside, a temporary disguise. When sleep sinks in, that mask is set aside. Consciousness peels itself loose, untethered from your name, your body, and the brutal structures of daily life. It becomes nothing but cold awareness stripped of personality, job, status, left as a raw witness, observing, remembering in a way the body never can. Ancient texts whisper about this hidden witness, a ghostly clarity untouched by flesh, lingering before birth, and circling after death. Every night in sleep you brush against it, the real you, unshaped by anything you've ever known. Dreams are just cracks in the barrier, where this deeper self leaks through glimpses from behind the curtain, tinged with an eerie weight, heavy with meanings your waking mind can't process. When the lights go out for good, what steps through that ruptured doorway may be far stranger, and far less comforting than anyone surviving has dared. You're not losing your grip, you're simply remembering what it felt like when nothing was holding you down. Even within the world of science, the foundation is showing signs of strain. Quantum physicists have begun admitting, almost softly, that consciousness may not be trapped inside the skull. It could drift outside, stretch like a signal, or extend into some vast, unseen web. What used to sound absurd is now whispered in professional circles, where physics and the mystical almost seem to meet in a hush. Robert Monroe's journeys echo this quiet shift. He didn't just wander through dreams. He learned to chart and revisit hidden terrains. Monroe talked about vibrations and states of being that hint at something beyond flesh, a sense that consciousness is a traveler, mapping out strange, invisible places, more real than the one we're meant to call home. With enough practice, he believed anyone could glimpse these realms and recognize what ancient writings have always suggested were not truly of this world, just visitors in fragile disguises. And here's the heartache: if your awareness isn't bound by birth or by death, then what exactly is this normal, day-to-day life supposed to mean? Why do we play out the motions here, if the truest part of us exists somewhere else, untouched and waiting? It's a lonely thought. That perhaps all of this, the coffee, the small talk, the struggle, might be little more than a pause in an endless journey. Maybe waking life is only the shadow, and what happens when we close our eyes is the only place that ever really mattered. Maybe it's just the classroom. Maybe that's all this is, a rehearsal space for whatever waits on the other side. And perhaps that explains why sleep feels so necessary. Not just for the body to recover, but for something deeper inside to remember itself. Each night, when you drift off, you meet a quieter version of yourself, the one that slips between the cracks of your daytime mask, stripped of pretense, familiar and strange. Now and then, if the moment is right, something breaks through a half-remembered place, a voice you almost recognize, a sense of returning even though you shouldn't know the way. That's when the lines start to blur. There's a reason why the memories fade as you wake. It's not about forgetfulness or poor sleeping habits. It runs deeper, woven into the way you were shaped and told how to live. Ever since childhood, you were taught to file dreams away as nonsense. Just a dream, they insisted. Forget about it. Bit by bit, you stopped holding on to the questions, stopped writing things down, stopped searching for meaning in the fragments that lingered at the edge of waking. But maybe that was always the intention. Dreams are a threat to anything that demands order, because a mind free to wander at night is a mind that can't be boxed in. In dreams, the rules unravel. You slip through old timelines, break boundaries, speak to ghosts, and touch worlds that daylight denies you. And every morning you return, emptier, perhaps, and a little less sure you'll ever remember what it is you keep losing. In that strange, empty space where limitations fade, you start to recall what you once knew deep down. You're not just a buyer, or someone filling a role, or a collection of traits. Somewhere beyond all that, you were a soul. Yet, nothing unsettles the system more than a soul that remembers itself. Childhood offered dreams that were wild and raw, sometimes so intense you'd wake up drenched in fear, seeking comfort and explanations that never really made sense. But eventually, those vivid nights became muted. Their details slipped away. School urged you to pay attention to what's real, while the media kept you busy with illusions, keeping your inner truths out of reach. Bit by bit, you weren't just taught to sleep. You learned how to forget your dreams, how to drift through your own hidden world untouched. People barely talk about dreams except to dismiss them. Stop dreaming, they say, face reality. But what if there's more honesty in your midnight visions than in the routines of your daily life? What if those unexplainable dreams that feel like echoes from a time before this one are actually glimpses through a window, looking into something old and familiar? Maybe those odd fragments aren't about your past, but about a part of you that you've lost. The Gnostics had their own word for this. Forgetting, they believed, were flickers of a forgotten knowing, concealed in a world that encourages us to never look inward, to never remember who we really were. The physical world is more than just flesh and structure. It's a confining labyrinth of lost memories. Nightly, they whispered, the soul claws its way upward, desperate for a taste of what's real, yet almost no one recalls the journey. Why do we wander so blind? Because to erase is the root of control. Strip someone of their memories and you sever their strength. Let them forget the hidden worlds and they'll never look for an exit. Let them lose the sense of their own infinity and they'll rot quietly in cages made of empty routines. This world thrives on that erasure. People grope for meaning in the glare of neon, in cold currency, in endless distractions, all while the shadows of the other realms shift quietly beyond their reach. The very concept of death is twisted into a nightmare, though every night we dissolve into nothingness and return, untouched by the jaws of real ending. Fortunes are spent on squeezing more minutes from the day, but nearly nothing on deciphering the deep, cold vastness we pass through in sleep. The harsh joke is on us. Maybe once in a while, a sliver of truth slices through the void, a dream that bites, a whisper from a shape you can't name, a place too familiar to be a coincidence, a stab of déjà vu that chills the gut. And as you blink awake, the spell shatters. You shove the memory down, bury it under coffee and headline static, and march back to the gray routine. That's how the forgetting burrows in you. You're not cracked for failing to recall, not feeble for drifting dreamless and lost. The design is precise. It teaches obedience, makes sleep a dull pause rather than a portal. Still, beneath those layers, a faint trace remains. Something deep inside has never let go. It's simply waiting for you to start tuning in again. People told you that your dreams were meaningless, just scraps of mental static left over from the day, odd images without purpose. But if that's the case, why do some dreams linger for years? Why do certain ones feel sharper, more real than anything you've experienced awake? Why do you sometimes wake up laughing, weeping, frightened, or calm for reasons you can't explain? Deep inside, you sense the answer. Your dreams are trying to reach you with something important. Ancient societies never brushed dreams aside as irrelevant. They viewed them as sacred communication. The Egyptians built dream temples where seekers would fast and meditate, hoping for insight in sleep. The Greeks created special rooms for dream incubation. The Tibetans developed dream yoga across the world. Indigenous cultures treat dreams as sacred tools, a way to connect with ancestors, find guidance, and heal where ordinary life cannot. Carl Jung called dreams the royal road to the unconscious, but even that doesn't quite capture it. Because dreams aren't just a mirror, they reveal your core self. They peel back the layers and show who you are underneath the roles and stories. If you're willing to really notice, they become a guide, symbols and patterns repeating, not because you're flawed, but because your spirit is trying to cut through the static. The more you ignore the call, the louder the message becomes. Most of us have known that dream that loops itself into the early hours, the hallway that stretches on without relief, the slow motion plunge, the crumbling teeth, the stranger with eyes you almost recognize. They repeat not because something's wrong with you, but because your spirit is struggling to make itself heard above everything else. And sometimes, the less you listen, the more insistent those dreams become. They aren't flaws in the system. They're quiet signals from a part of yourself you rarely hear. Sometimes, your mind can't quite translate what it means, but a deeper piece of you always knows. That's why you can wake up feeling unsettled, your heart pounding, even when the dream itself wasn't frightening. It's never really just a story. It's a message you receive in the only way your soul remembers how. Underneath all the ordinary words, there's a hidden logic unique to dreams. A hallway can be hope that never arrives. A storm is something inside you changing in ways you can't control. A stranger is a version of you that never got to speak out loud. If you start to truly listen, the dreams shift shape. Maybe they gain more clarity. Maybe they become more insistent, until you find yourself less of a bystander and more of a participant, and you notice, almost painfully, that the world within your dreams responds to you. If you ask, sometimes you get an answer. But of all things you could hope to learn, The hardest is this: no one else can truly interpret these messages, because the language, like the longing that drives it, is yours alone. The lion you see in your dream doesn't have the same meaning as the one that appears in mine, because dreams don't arrive from somewhere outside of us. They rise up from the core of who we are. They're woven from your unique memories, anxieties, and desires, turning those into symbols. This is why the generic interpretations you find in books or apps often fall flat. They're using someone else's key to unlock your inner world. The real method is more personal. Begin by writing them down, watching for recurring themes. Pay attention to how your dreams make you feel, not just what happens in them. Dreams are shaped by emotion first, followed by imagery, and only then by logic. Sometimes they don't even speak. They resound, they resonate, they linger. You're not always going to grasp their meaning right away, but with time and patience, something starts to move inside you. You start to sense which dreams are just dreams, which are nudges, and which might be something mysterious. Because there's another layer: a few dreams don't belong to you at all. Some are visits. Some are memories echoing from elsewhere. Some come from beings or places that only reach you in sleep. When your guard is down, when the boundary between worlds thins, when you're truly open to what's real. Dreams aren't just stories you tell yourself at night. They're signals from the part of you that remembers everything that matters. The only real requirement is your willingness to pay attention. Too often, people slip into sleep as if someone flipped off a light. Awake one moment, then switched off completely, and that's exactly how the system prefers things. When you treat sleep as a blackout, an unbroken void where you surrender all control, you abandon one of the most formidable forces you possess, the shadowed depths of your own mind. Yet, sleep doesn't need to be an oblivion. It can be more than mere recovery. It can become an unsettling reclamation, a nightly descent into the haunted corridors of your soul. The first step is strangely simple. You must learn to awaken within the dream. Lucid dreaming is no cheap parlor trick, no shallow spirituality. It's an ancient, haunted path. The Tibetans named it Milan, dream yoga, not for entertainment, but as a crucible in which the mind could forge its own freedom. To them, lucidity was rehearsal for death itself, because the dream realm, like the liminal bardo, shifts and twists under the gaze of awareness. Within that space, the familiar dissolves, fears stalk you in living color, obsessions bare their teeth, and identities wither until you're left staring at what lies beneath the mask. You have tasted fragments of this before. The instant a dream shudders and cracks when you realize, with a chill, this isn't real. Maybe you floated, maybe the walls bled with color, maybe you woke up gasping before you dared go deeper. It's all waiting for you in the dark, if you're bold enough to open your eyes where the world says you should be blind. That wasn't just luck. That was you glimpsing beyond the ordinary boundaries. And yes, you can develop that ability. You can nurture it, strengthen it, and put it to use. It starts with your own intention. Before you drift off to sleep, make a promise to yourself that you'll remember your dreams, that you'll become aware within them. Jot it down if you like, not because writing holds any special power, but because you do. Your mind pays attention to what you focus on repeatedly. When you make your sleep as much of a priority as your waking ambitions, your mind reacts in turn. Keep a notebook by your bed. As soon as you wake up, write down any bits and pieces you recall, names, images, feelings, even if they seem nonsensical. If anything, those odd moments are especially worth noting. You're training your conscious self to respect whatever your dreaming side reveals. The more you stick with this, the stronger the link between your two worlds becomes. During the day, check in with yourself. Ask if you're dreaming. Glance at your hands. Check a clock. Really question your state. Do it enough, and before long you'll do it while dreaming too. That's the shift when your awareness in the dream kicks in, and suddenly what felt like static turns into a blank slate. And you're not just along for the ride anymore. You're steering the whole thing. But this isn't simply about gaining control. It's about transformation and healing. Lucid dreams draw you into a realm where your deepest fears slip from shadow into shape, where the pieces of yourself you tried to bury claw their way up to speak. They let you stumble back into old wounds and haunting memories, but instead of healing, you illuminate them, bare, raw, demanding attention. Within these grim corridors of your unguarded mind, you bargain with consequences, interrogate monsters, wander spaces untouched by daylight or reason. You might meet guides or corpses, see the faces of those lost or those you thought you'd escaped, and tread landscapes more familiar than your own skin, yet unclaimed by any reality you recognize. As the walls between dreaming and waking decay, fragments of something ancient seep through. a rhythm older than thought, a secret nesting under every comfort. It presses into your mind. You've not just been dreaming when you close your eyes, but drifting half alive through your days, shackled to routines, illusions, ghosts of safety. The fracture between sleep and consciousness dissolves, and the notion of waking is revealed as a grim joke unless you wrench your awareness into every moment. True lucid dreaming isn't just about breaking free as you sleep. It's the threat of awakening everywhere, of ripping yourself out of the trance that is your existence. It's reclaiming your lost power, not in the gentle dark of night, but in every cold, waking hour, stalking this world with the memory of countless places and selves lingering at the edge of vision. The maps you know are lies. Your soul roams, even if your waking mind refuses to remember, because when your flesh finally gives in to sleep, the rest of you returns to those haunted territories, forever searching for the boundary between dream and nightmare. Its path isn't haphazard. This is a labyrinth, a pattern stitched into the shadowy veins of worlds your waking mind can't locate on any map. These places are built not of stone or soil, but of twisted thought, raw emotion, and pulsing currents of unseen force. You've been there, whether your memory permits it or not. Nightly, as your body surrenders to sleep, something deeper slips loose, and when it moves, it doesn't wander blind. There's an order, a grim geometry, an architecture of unworldly voids muttered about in scriptures, glimpsed by fools and visionaries who return haunted. The more lucid you become within these reveries, the clearer it gets you're not simply inventing these scenes, you are walking corridors that stretch far from the mercy of daylight. The Tibetan texts point to the bardos. The bardo is a haunted realm where stray thoughts bleed into forms, and every fear is given flesh. Your nightly passage crosses its borders, sometimes into realms twisted and starless, where reason warps and hope's a whisper, sometimes into shimmering halls crowded with symbols that leer and beckon. These aren't only dreams, they're territories, alive and separate, waiting for you each dusk whether you wish it or not. Robert Monroe roamed these borderlands not just a collector of dreams, but a cartographer of the in-between. His crossings led always to the same unearthly districts, where the laws that bind our waking world fall away. He cataloged cities that never sleep, energies that coil and bite, intelligences that observe and sometimes answer back. He left behind more than tales. He drew the maps for those who dare leave the body behind. He spoke of places close to the living world, places where souls hang back, lost, not ready to move on, haunted by things they never managed to let go. Beyond that, he described deeper layer spaces for mending, for learning, for slowly rebuilding a sense of wholeness. These weren't whimsical inventions, he said, but real structures. They have form, boundaries, rules. They echo the old beliefs passed down for centuries. The Egyptians called it the Duat, a shadowy realm of challenges and strange figures where the soul faces versions of itself at every turn. The afterlife, in old thinking, isn't just a destination. It stretches out, layered and responsive, shaped by whatever occupies your heart and mind. You don't arrive there only after death. You brush against it in your dreams, in the shimmer of half-sleep, in those lonely, suspended hours when your body rests, but your mind slips free. Every step deeper is determined by your own frequency, not by roads or maps. Fear anchors you in the denser, darker places, endless confusion, echoes that never fade, wandering shadows. But brightness and understanding can lift you, if you're lucky, into gentler spaces where peace exists. What lingers is the ache that most people never find a way out of those lower zones. They simply never learned. No one showed them that their thoughts, more than anything else, decide where they end up. Dying, he said, doesn't change anyone. It only exposes what's always been there. In that light, dreams aren't just idle fancies. They're silent lessons in survival, piecemeal preparations for journeys most people stumble into unready and alone. Those who practice awareness in their dreams, he believed, have at least a glimmer of choice in the realms to come. As your awareness sharpens, a new and unsettling power creeps in, the authority to choose your path. No longer are you a puppet jerked around by panic and bewilderment. Suddenly, you're able to move, to see, to sift through the shadows and decide what comes next. That's why, across forgotten eras, people haunted by secrets obsessed over dream training, not as idle diversion, but as a desperate bid for liberation. They clung to a wisdom: we've let rot, existence doesn't end with death. And the true crossing begins not when your heart stops, but when your eyes finally open to what you really are. That flicker of realization, that you're not just meat or sleep or memory, rips the world open. The map blooms in front of you, the labyrinth lights up, and you remember you've walked these halls before. Not in some hazy metaphor, but in a cold, recurring cycle. And with every recovered fragment, you snatch back pieces of yourself. Pieces you're told never existed: the freedom to roam, the freedom to defy, the freedom to claw your way awake, past the flesh, past the static, past the lie that life ends at the Siri, past the lie that life ends at the grave. They never shared any of this, for a very deliberate reason. Awakened minds are feral, unmanageable. What use is a worker who's tasted that endless midnight and snarled at the threshold of death? What use is a pawn who peeks behind the curtain and recoils from all the petty cravings of the daylight world? No system built on trembling obedience can stand when truly awake people move among us. The truth had to be shackled, cut up, lost in dust, because the oldest control is the one that hides all exits and calls it safety. Look hard enough, and you'll wish you hadn't. This isn't a modern deception. It's been whispered behind shut doors since the first nightmare. All through history, those who remember the soul's true nature and sensed there was more to existence than the physical world were often dismissed, ridiculed, or even persecuted. Mystics, visionaries, and dreamers got branded as witches, heretics, or madmen, not because their insights were flawed, but because their understanding shook the foundations of accepted reality. Their dreams were too powerful, their revelations too unruly, their perspectives impossible to fit neatly into the established story. Over time, society trained us to forget. Dream worlds were relegated to mere fantasy. The afterlife became a simple system of rewards and punishments. Sleep was stripped of its mystery and seen as just bodily upkeep. Anyone who ventured into those inner territories risked being called crazy. None of this happened by chance. It was deliberate. When people don't realize their true nature, when they forget they are souls with unlimited reach, they become easier to direct. They stick to their roles, keep their heads down, take their prescribed medicines, and follow the narrative. Religion promised later rewards. Science denied anything beyond the physical, and media dismissed dreams as random brain static. Three pillars of society, each pulling in a different direction, yet agreeing on one point: don't dig too deep. Don't stray off the path. Don't challenge the rules. And people went along, not out of ignorance, but because real alternatives were hidden from them. Now, though, you see things differently. Now, you have your suspicions. And suspicion is where memory stirs. Once you catch even a flicker of the truth. When a dream clings too long or something happens that shouldn't fit into the rules of ordinary life, you can't push it back into hiding. You begin spotting the fissures. You start recalling the in-between places, the odd deja vu of a landscape you've never set foot in, the eerie sense that something is reaching out to you from beyond this reality. The reason this truth hides is because it holds real power, not just some vague spiritual force, but genuine influence. It makes you live differently. It strips away the fear that holds you prisoner. It hands you control over your own experience. It shatters the notion that this reality gets the final word. That's the real threat to any system: not open revolt, not visible unrest, but awakening from within. A soul that knows how to wander is a soul that knows how to question, and one that knows how to question won't remain silent or trapped. It has a way out. As soon as you start recalling where you travel in your dreams and reclaim your right to those liminal spaces, you become a threat, not because you're aggressive, but because you're unshackled. True freedom doesn't begin by reshaping the world you see. Its roots wind far deeper. In that hidden interior you drift toward each night, in the silent expanse that has always lingered, watching. Dreaming isn't something you must learn. It's a skill etched into your bones, a ritual older than memory itself. You've crossed these shadowed corridors before, lifetime after lifetime, prowling through sleep, slipping through moments you could never truly explain, but could never erase. The echo in your dreams is not random. It's a chilling reminder, a soul's shiver as it brushes across a threshold it once called sanctuary. When darkness falls and the world's clamor dies, that door creaks open again. What waits beyond isn't fantasy. It's you, raw and exposed, stripped of the mask daylight forces you to wear. Awake in a way sunlight has always failed to teach. You were never truly still. You simply forgot to notice the journey. Your dreams became foolishness, their omens ridiculed, their warnings ignored. Because you let the waking world convince you life means ticking clocks and looming deadlines. But life's true face is masked in riddles, fluttering in half-glimpsed symbols, murmuring through haunted metaphors. The fragment of you that once listened, the old silent part, patient and half-remembered, remains waiting in the cold at the threshold. There's nothing new to become. All you have to do is let go of what's been layered onto your true self, the assigned rules, the noise, the conditioning, the notion that sleep is purely for rest and not for insight, the belief that your worth is measured by productivity and not presence, and the worry that dreams might reveal truths you aren't ready to face. Deep down, you already sense those dreams are real. That's what unsettles the part of you still desperate for control. But there's also a deeper part, the one that recognizes significance beyond reason, the part that feels lost when you wake, that sense something or someone beyond explanation, that's glimpsed impossible places. That's who you truly are. That self is the awareness just beyond your everyday reality, waiting to be given a voice. You weren't meant to coast through life half awake. You're here to become conscious within it. Not just while awake, but in the spaces behind closed eyes, the places where mortality is rehearsed and purpose comes to light. You're meant to recall both what slipped away and who lost sight of you. If you've made it this far, it's a sign something inside is stirring and there's no turning back. The former way of existing, just drifting and forgetting, won't work for you anymore because you've glimpsed something genuine. Once you've witnessed true reality, sleep doesn't come easily. The dreaming path consumes you. It isn't just an interest, but an undeniable force dragging you deeper into forbidden territories. Not forbidden because they're perilous, but because they shatter the comfortable illusions others cling to. If any of this claws at your mind, don't look away. Go at Insights Academy and claim your free copy of the Kybalion, a key to teachings buried beyond ordinary reach. But remember, none of it means anything unless you confront what really happens when your consciousness slips out of your flesh and bone. Click the video on this page. It's the jagged secret they hope stays buried. If you walk away changed, write, "I understood it" in the comments.